Today, we have with us the most beautiful and lovely Gabriella Taylor. She's a professional woman-centered coach, relationship specialist, ordained minister, and the founder of Extraordinary Love, offering transformational educational programs for women, combining modern psychology, relational neuroscience, and ancient spiritual principles. I was going to say practices. To bridge the gap that keeps conscious women separate from the loving relationships they deserve. Thank you for being here today.
So happy that you asked me. Happy to be here.
My pleasure. So we are gonna get really deep, really fast. Is that okay with you?
Oh, absolutely. It's my preference.
Awesome, awesome is my preference as well. So what is the biggest blind spot that has women feeling upset when dating?
Oh, I mean, it's a really good question. And I think it's hard to say what the biggest one is, because there's so many factors that influence us. But I would say at large, it's really recognizing that we all live in a world that has largely taught us that who we are, what we need is not okay.
Right.
And how that collective assumption and belief structure, which has affected a lot of us, this idea that there's something wrong with us, how that has caused us to really suffer a lot when it comes to love and relationship. I mean, when it comes to any part of our life, because we can often experience so much internal conflict. We want this, but is this okay? We hope for this, but we settle for this. There's so much paradox that comes up because we've been really programmed and conditioned to expect very little. But then there's also all of this Instagram meme culture that's like, live your best life and go for your bliss and all of that. But it directly contradicts how most of us, our inner framework has been set up. So I think that's one big one.
Right. I loved what you said about social media. You named Instagram. And I believe nowadays dating has always had challenges and good things, it's like everything in life. Nothing is black or white. But I believe one of the challenges women have right now with dating is precisely that. It's social media, how they kind of lose touch with what they really want, because they believe that what they want is a perfectly great, like a guy that looks great on a picture. And that is just not the right way to go for when we are looking for a committed relationship, for a real connection. But there is such a pressure of having the perfect looking guy, and that it has to look great on Instagram, and if he doesn't have the sports car or the suits that that everybody's wearing, that's something that I don't want. And so do you notice that with your clients in your practice, that is affecting them?
Well, I would even go so far from what you've said to say, I don't even know if it's about losing touch with what they want. I think part of what we're discovering by and large is actually the process of getting in touch with what we want, right? Because we've been fed, all of these external ideas around, oh, you need this, you want this, you need this, you want this. And even the absence of being told that, there's still ways that we receive messaging as to what we should want or shouldn't want. And I love what you said, and bringing it even deeper. I think we're in this we are certainly in a collective lifting of the feminine on this planet at this time. And
Absolutely.
part of that is really seeing all of the ways that we've been living under a it's almost like under a ceiling of implied submission, implied like if we can manage how other people think about us, then we're okay, which
Right.
means a lot of being inauthentic with ourselves. But if we actually stand up in the strength of who we are, we risk being shamed or judged or criticized. And so this piece, it sounds so simple around, what do you want? Like,
Right.
what does the healthy part of you want in relationship? Not the part of you that thinks she wants XYZ because she was taught that's what she should want, but
Right.
really uncover, like, what do you want that will bring out your best and bring out your heart? That to me is the exciting threshold that we're at.
Right. I so agree with that. And what's coming up for me is that phrase that I'm gonna butcher. I'm paraphrasing, like, with freedom comes responsibility. It's
Mhm.
like we are in 2023 where we can date anybody we want. We want to date a man, we date a man. We want to date a woman, we date a woman. Men, women. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just,
Mhm.
you know,
Yes.
we have so much freedom.
Yeah.
And but it hasn't been like that for a long period of time. It has really been like that for about 60 years.
Mhm.
So
2000 years, historians tell us, but yeah.
right, yeah, 2000 years since, like, the British invaded Africa and the
Mhm.
African matriarch had
Mhm.
to submit and all
Mhm.
that. But in the
Mhm.
Western world, we kind of got our rights like about 60 years ago when we stopped adhering to that model that my grandma and maybe my mom was very uh, modern, but my grandma was adhering to that model of uh, how reciprocity. The men do this, the woman do this, and with us being on the workforce and being able to vote and the
Mhm.
sexual revolution, the pill, being able to have sex for pleasure and not, all the things that have happened in
Mhm.
this. It's really, really hard for a woman to really get in touch with the needs because
Mhm.
our brain is
Mhm.
still the same pretty much, but the exterior has changed dramatically really fast. And I think it was, I can't remember who was it, but he said something like, it's not that we don't like change, it's that we don't like change happening that fast. So the question is, how do we
Mhm.
adjust to
Mhm.
all these, like, it's happening really fast.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you. And I'm aware that I think I misheard you initially. So with what you're saying, yes, like the past 60 years, there has been a, revolution of sorts in terms of women's liberation and opportunities and the birth pill coming forward and all that. So I think I misheard you. So yes, and
Good.
right, like, I mean, that's another really great question because I mean, the reality is we're at a tipping point on this planet. Like there are a lot of things at stake. Life on Earth is at stake right now. And while we have gone extinct 5 times before on this planet, we are 50% way through a mass extinction event right now. So I think the stakes are so much higher, and it's easy to get sort of lost in my little world, what is, do I look okay in this bathing suit? When the reality is the world is calling for more women to
Yeah.
stand up, step out, and to lead. And so the process that goes into really reconstructing our inner world. So it's almost like, I think of it like that we're at a time right now where we're really needing to prune our inner garden, as men and women, but women is my specialty. And so there's a lot of pruning that we have to do pretty quickly to pluck out all of the weeds of all of the ways that we were taught, all of the messages we received, all the conditioning that caused our brain to be underdeveloped in the areas that actually allow us to feel from the inside out that I matter, that my voice matters, my needs matter, my wants matter, because these things, they're not conceptual. They're not held in the part of the brain that we have choice over. Like the 80% of our lived experience is governed by our subcortical brain, which we don't have conscious awareness to. Yet there's so much information in there that comes out through bodily sensation, anxiety, discomfort, aversion, that tells us, oh, there's some weeds in here that need to be, plucked out, weeds that are having us shame ourselves or compare ourselves or holds ourselves back. And so I don't know what the master plan is, from like God's master plan, but I certainly do feel the intensity of women standing up over and over and lifting, seeking to lift one another, such as you in this beautiful series, the work that I do, where we are being called forward with great rapidity to really shift our ways and to shift how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others.
Absolutely, absolutely, for sure. I agree with you. We are evolving at such a fast speed.
We have to, if we're going to make it.
But the good thing is that I think we are stepping up to the plate really good.
Mm, please,
We
please.
are amazing. We are amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there are so many women that are doing amazing work and helping each other. And you saying yes to being this platform is one example of that. So, what about we change a little bit speed and we talk about something that it's a little bit deep too, but I do have so many clients that come to me because they are brokenhearted. They have been in a relationship and the man cheated on her. That happened to me. Or he broke up with them, or for X, Y, or Z reason, they're just brokenhearted and they are depressed and they can't make sense of their lives. And um, do you have any insights for, if one of those women are watching this, that I'm sure they are watching this interview, how can we start healing from that? What are the first few, even baby steps that we can take towards healing a broken heart so we can start seeing a brighter future again?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, gosh, I've been there.
Oh no.
I've had two doozy heartbreaks, so I understand the visceral, agony that can come from that. And I would say do yourself a favor and get some support, because the things for a lot of us early on when we were young and developing as little girls, a lot of us had things either happen that were difficult to metabolize or process at that time, whether we grew up in a broken home or an alcoholic home or experienced some level of abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect, or parents that were good parents, but that just didn't know how to attune to us and that tried to mold us into a vision of what they wanted us to be versus really paying attention to and getting curious about who we were as a little girl developing. So a lot of us carry these very real imprints around having a sense of not feeling safe, or a feeling of not belonging, or some level of attachment insecurity or injury. And so that might have happened 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 70 years ago when we were little, but boom, we go through a breakup all these years later. And it's almost like it can wake up those parts of us that are frozen in time, that are really perhaps ready for a level of healing and integration that we weren't able to connect with or offer ourselves earlier in life. And so if you're going through a breakup that is particularly gut-wrenching or feels maybe even bigger than what the relationship warranted, because sometimes we might be in a year-long relationship and go through a breakup that knocks the wind out of us.
Right.
Usually that's pointing to that it's awakening something, it's touching something that's been carried deeply within that maybe is ready to come up for healing. So the first baby step is the best way that you can, get some support from a qualified, skilled facilitator that understands this territory.
Yeah.
Not just anyone, but someone that really understands the process of healing the hurts that are coming out through relationship breakup. That's number one. And then number two, to really find like a guide, whether it's, a book or a coach or a women's group or something that specializes in the area of relationship that can teach us, what to look for, what are the red flags, because for a lot of us, we've had no real education in.
Oh, we were going to blind.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. About back in 2005, it was early 2000s, I was doing great in my work with women. I've been in this world for a long time, working this way, supporting women. And I was doing amazing work with women, yet in my relationships, I was like such a hot mess. So here I am having this, a lot of success with my clients, but then behind closed doors, like I felt like a 12-year-old that was so overwhelmed and went through a really bad breakup. And then when I got into the dating scene, I was like, oh my gosh, like I would be, all the things that I was coaching my clients on not to do, I was there doing, having sex before I was ready, pretending that I didn't want a monogamous relationship if they were, just wanting to date around, all the things. And I was like, I kind of had to come to Jesus, for me, because I was doing all the workshops, I was reading all of the books, about relationship,
And
but
that's
every
the worst.
was
That's
sort
the
of,
worst. When you're doing all the work and it's not working, that's
yeah.
the worst. It's so,
And especially with all of the things that I was doing, so many of them were implying that I somehow needed to be different. I needed to talk differently, or almost like
right.
play a game differently, or I don't know. It just didn't feel right. So I was like, okay, I am smart, I'm educated, I'm going to use myself as a test, subject and do a research on myself. And I called it my laboratory of love. And in my laboratory of love, I set up all of this criteria to sort of gauge myself against in the areas of before going on a date, while being on a date, and after a date. What was I thinking? What was I feeling? What was I saying? How was I behaving? And this really gave me so much information and insight as to what was running in my consciousness that I then, mobilized myself to get some support with. But it also just grew a tremendous amount of self-awareness as to what was happening in me. And through that, and as I was going through this process and I'm dating and dating and dating, my relationship with dating started transforming before my very eyes, and the caliber of men that were coming in, the quality of exchanges on the dates. I mean, during that year, I actually met my now husband, Nicholas. It took a few years. And it was about a year. And through that laboratory of love experience, I was like, okay, if this worked for me, and I felt closer to myself and more connected to myself as a result, not some manufactured version of myself, some manufactured self-help, version of myself. I was like, this has got to work for other women. So then I spent 2 years doing over 1,000 hours of interviews with amazing, conscious, self-aware, successful women who were also bombing in relationship or just single and they didn't want to be. And I started kind of collecting the research, like I started researching, what are they doing? What are they wanting? What's not working? And from there, I created my relationship breakthrough program. It's called Foundations of Extraordinary Love. And it's really based on all of that data that I compiled then. And at this point, I've run a lot. I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of women through it. So it really provides a roadmap for looking at our relationship with relationships. So whether it's my program or another program, something that helps us see more clearly, something that helps us see what we couldn't see before, that perhaps we were unconsciously playing out in our relationships is
Right.
would be number two. So one, get some private one-on-one support to the best degree that you can for a deeper level of healing. And two, educate yourself on what to look for and what's healthy, in love and relationship.
Right. I so agree with you. It's super important. I see it with my clients all the time. They're perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong with them. They're lovely ladies, but they have those blind spots that they cannot see it, and they are coming from such a great place. I attract all these beautiful women inside and out. They're so empathetic and compassionate and loving, and they're amazing human beings and smart.
Mhm.
They're so smart. They're running businesses or having super high-end jobs and all that. And they believe they are being kind and helpful with the things they are
Yes.
doing when it actually is not working for them. Because as you said, 80% is those hidden things. It's all our trauma, the maps to love that we learned when we were a child. I mean, our relationships, our romantic relationships, and the relationships we had with our parents are completely equivalent. It's
Yes.
not the same with work, it's not the same with friendships, it's not, but the romantic relationship, if we don't check it, we will recreate it, even if we swore that we weren't going to do the same.
Absolutely.
Even
Absolutely.
if we say, I will never do that.
Yeah.
We either do it or we go completely to the other extreme, which
Yeah.
is not healthy either.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, you were
I
going to.
love what you're saying because, right, like, and that's often what I will teach. We'll either repeat it or we'll rebel from it. But
Right,
either way, like you were talking about, and it's like we might declare it and we might swear it, but the part of our brain that's doing that is not actually connected to the deeper, older part of our brain and our limbic system and our amygdala that holds the emotional memory of
right,
things that have happened over time that impacted us that we may have no memory about at all, that are sculpting our experience. Like Carl Jung says that until we make
okay, you're going to answer my question now.
until we make the unconscious conscious,
Okay,
until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our life and we
right,
will call it fate. And
right,
to me, that speaks of like the unconscious material that's in our subcortical brain. Until we make it conscious, we get curious, we start asking ourselves the deeper questions, then
right,
it will rule our life and we will call it fate. Whether we declare using willpower, never again, we
right.
instead, and this isn't to be scary and overwhelming, like, oh, there's big scary things in
Oh
our
no, it's
unconscious. It's
wonderful.
more like
It's
it's such a
liberating.
degree of self-intimacy and
Yeah.
self-care to get curious about what is alive in here that's causing me to recreate this thing that's really hurting, that's creating a lot of pain. Like, it's a beautiful act of love and caring to get curious about what's all in here.
Right. The worst thing that can happen is that we are authentic and we are living our
Yeah,
life, you know.
right. That's the worst thing.
I remember when I was dating after my divorce, I went through a period where I did a lot of work on myself in this area of dating and relationships, and that's what led me to be a dating and relationship coach. But I dated 200 guys, like first dates in 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember, when I was studying and all that, and I didn't like, my thing was, I think it was cultural because I am Latina, and I was dating American guys. So I think it was the culture that I wasn't resonated because they were great guys,
Mhm.
super great guys, but
Mhm.
I didn't have attraction. So at some point, I remember thinking, gosh, maybe I'm gay. But it's so funny because a lot of women won't do the work because they are afraid of discovering they're gay. Well, if you are gay, you better own it.
Mhm.
No,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
you
And more, I
probably
think
are
we're
gay, but
I
You know,
think we're afraid of doing the work because most of us have had experiences where we feel alone and unsupported. And it can be really easy to assume that we're going to touch something that's overwhelming and
right,
I'll be unsupported and alone and left to deal with all those big feelings on my
right,
own. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about getting to do this work with,
right,
I have my people that I go to support me, and then I have people that come to me that I support. And there's something that's so crucial about recreating a culture of support
right,
because we live in a very isolated culture at large,
right.
especially here in America. Different from, my family's of Greek origin,
Okay,
like in a lot of other countries and other parts of the world, there is much more of a sense of almost like tribal culture.
right,
The States in particular, there's so much isolation, so much aloneness. Even though there's 8 billion people on this planet, it's like loneliness and isolation is like it's an endemic, like it's all around us. So I really feel like a deep empathy with what you're saying around this piece of, yeah, like it's not scary to look in there. It is scary to look in there if we feel like we're going to be alone with what we find. But if
right,
we go in hand and feel like somebody is with us and it's
right,
going to be okay because we are accompanied, so
right.
much healing can occur and we meet the depth of our heart in a whole new way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love it. Yes, there is a lot of isolation and it can feel lonely, but
Mhm.
it's doable and there are plenty of people. And sometimes that's the place to start.
Mhm.
If I feel isolated and unsupported, maybe that's the first baby step, getting curious regarding that.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
come I feel like that? How come I am generating that kind of experience in my life?
Mhm. Mhm.
And if we can transform that, that doesn't have anything to do with men dating relationship or anything like that.
Mhm.
But if we can transform that, I think we can replicate the process to other areas of our lives because there are plenty of opportunities, as isolated as the American culture can feel. I lived in two different, this is the third country I live in. So there are so many resources here,
Yes. Yes.
so many resources, free resources.
Yes. Yes.
So there are charities and foundations and people helping. It's constant. I am huge on doing volunteering work.
Mhm.
I have a bunch of friends that are like me, and so I know firsthand.
Mhm. Mhm.
There is a lot of support. So if we are feeling lonely, isolated, and like no nobody's there for me,
Mhm.
that probably is the first step
Mhm. Mhm.
to start to question a little bit.
Mhm.
It's so lovely talking with you. I can talk with you forever. Oh my goodness, we see eye on eye. It's like so
Mhm.
everything you say and it resonates with me so deeply.
Mhm.
And but I know you have a gift for our viewers, a free
Mhm.
gift. Is that right? Would you like to talk about it?
I do. And what one is it? I do so many of these that I sometimes forget what what one are we doing?
Oh, well,
I've already had 3 different interviews and shows today. So
oh my goodness, you're busy. Let me see. It's a video series for sure.
yes.
Because I
Okay.
got I
Okay.
got it already. So I know
Okay.
the video series because I got the first video
Yes.
already.
Yes.
You remember?
I do. Yes. Okay. And we can edit this part out.
Oh, that's
Or
fine.
not. All right, there we go. Candid camera. So essentially, from picking up on what I had shared about that research project that I did, that 2-year experiment of interviewing 1,000 hours, doing 1,000 hours of interviews with women, what I extrapolated from that was that there were 6 primary common blind spots that women tripped up over. So I did a little video series, a complimentary video series highlighting each of the 6 blind spots, sort
Oh,
of expressing how it might show up in your world, what it is, and also what you can do about it. And so it's a gift series. You'll get 6 different videos of each of them, and it'll just give you a little taste of direction that you can take into becoming more aware of yourself and what's alive inside of you and how this blind spot may or may not be showing up in your dating and relating life.
Sounds amazing. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Gabriella. You're so generous, and they're going to love it.
Beautiful.
It's going to be underneath this video, the link. So you click there and get it. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your experience, even your personal experience with us. And it has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I just want to say, for any woman that's here listening to this and feeling maybe lost in all of the big feelings that can come up around love, relationship, wanting, not having, heartbreak, I just want to say that you're not alone, and there are so many healing resources available to help you through. And so I just want to say that there is hope, there's possibility, there's healing, and there is, love available. So just keep going.
Yes, that's all we are. We are love. At the end of the day, that's all we are. So yes, if you need support and you don't know where to go, just contact us and we will help you out. We will direct you to the right place. So thank you.